Hello, everyone, and welcome to Women's Biz TV with Annie Gibbins. I am your host, and I am delighted to have an extraordinary guest to bring to you today. Her name is Suzy Michael. So welcome to the show, Suzy.
Oh, thank you so much, Annie, and thank you for asking me. I feel really honoured to be on your show. Thank you.
It is such a delight to have you join me today. And for those of you who do not know Suzy, she is a television host, a journalist. She's a media executive. She's been an executive producer. She's all over TV, print, radio, online and digital. And she's been working in the industry since 1997. So that's why you'll see an incredible broad portfolio of work, and it will all represent her passion and integrity. She is definitely known as the voice people trust, and it's for a reason, because all of the work that she's produced over a wide range of genres, including lifestyle and news and biographies and entertainment. It is just incredibly high standard work, and she has that ability to really tap into the person that she is interviewing in a really deep, authentic way. So you are going to love the interview that I have, or the time that we get to share with Suzy today. And I would love to start by asking you, Suzy, what actually inspired you to pursue a career in journalism and broadcasting? Pretty much, how did you start back in the day?
Yes. So how I started was actually back in my uni days. I did a lot of voluntary work with Optus Vision, who are now Foxtel. I did a lot of radio work, some magazine work. I was also the deputy, the editor of the On Campus magazine. So I loved media because I obviously studied journalism and media at university. And so I loved media. I loved being immersed in it. And I put myself out there and did lots of work in any kind of media. While all my friends are out at parties and they were out socializing, I would find a lot of my free time, whilst I did go to parties and socialize, but a lot of my free time was dedicated to going to those media outlets and just doing a lot of media work there, just purely voluntary. I was a uni student, so I did have time on my hands, as you do back then. So that's kind of how I got started. But the passion and then the inspiration behind wanting to do journalism and broadcasting or television was when I was actually quite young, when I was 10 years old roughly. And all I would see back in the 80s on the screens, when my dad would flick on the news, his nightly news, he'd sit there and watch the news every day, and all I would see are crime and gangs, drug lords, rape, murders. And that wasn't the kind of environment that I was brought up in. I was brought up in a very tight-knit community, and it's an ethnic community of Egyptians primarily. And Egyptians are very warm, friendly, loving. They're all about food and family, and they help others. So I was always surrounded by good people. And that upbringing didn't match what I was seeing on the TV. And I thought, well, you lie, TV, because that's not what I know. I know a lot of amazing people that give freely of their service and are happy to help people, but all you're telling me is it's just all about crimes and gangs and murders. And that's not what I'm experiencing. So I wanted to really change the perception of what the world was and what the news was to people, really share that light and shed a light on the more good news stories, the ones that only get that mention at the end, and they're usually about something really fluffy, like animals or a balloon race or something really fluffy like that. So it was more about bringing that goodness back to the screens. Yes, we report on the crimes and the gangs because that's very important. People need to know what's happening in their area, what's happening in Australia. They need to know their politics, but to also bring a little bit more of the good stuff. And that's what people need to see, more of that quality, more of that substance of there are good people in the world, and that's the passion, I guess, and that the inspiration behind wanting to get into journalism is to not change or reform, but enhance the good that you see in the world. And I think it gets left behind a lot, and that was really important to me at 10 years old, and I carried that through as I grew and studied it at uni.
Wow. What a journey and what an inspiration, and amazing that it hasn't changed since that calling, if you like, at 10. And I love people who've actually had an early calling and go, you know what, that's just who I want to be. And I love that you're focused on just bringing good into the world, because I agree. Isn't it just so sad when you've got young kids and, you put the news on, you want them to watch the news and it's just, negative violence. And it's hard to actually say this is a good thing for you. And I must admit, I love watching your style, because you seem to have the ability to really bring out the guts of the story, if you like, we'll call it that. So there is a challenging story. Of course, you're a journalist, you have to investigate that and bring that out. But you've got a very raw and authentic style that enables you to be able to do that without it being, really harsh or really sort of difficult to watch. How do you go about approaching that? What sort of skills do you have that you're happy to share with us that makes that happen so easily for you?
In terms of skills and being raw and authentic, look, I like to know my guests, firstly for them being themselves, and then for the things that they've achieved. So I would like to relate to them initially as a person, delve into their personal vault, if you like. I know that sounds a bit intrusive, but it's not intrusive. When they feel comfortable sharing and they want to inspire others, it's almost like I'm a mutual ground or a comfortable sharing ground for them to come and say, this is what I want to tell the world and this is how I want to inspire others. I find that they are actually empowered to share and give that piece of themselves to the audience. And I think the reason they have to do this, I think I'm a good listener. I have a genuine interest in them, and I want to hear people. I want to hear them. And that's very important, to be heard, but to also share what you want to be heard for, because it's going to be of benefit to the viewers and to the listeners. And bringing out that guts in the story, I suppose it's about creating that space for them where they do feel comfortable to just let down any kind of guard they've got to share, because they know it's a safe space. I'm not going to throw a curveball in there and then question them about something that we haven't really discussed or they haven't opened up to. So it's about not so much interrogation, but allowing them to open up and to share without feeling that interrogation process. And that's what's really important. And the reason why it's so raw and authentic is, yes, I give them some guided questions that we start with, but I always find we go off script. We always kind of have this conversation and I just find they open up and they're wanting to share more and wanting to give more. And that's just them wanting to share and give to that audience. Yeah.
Mm. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I just find that just so fascinating that that's the difference for someone with that level of skill and expertise. And I know you've been in the business for more than 25 years, so it probably shouldn't be surprising. But I think that's the X factor that, it's often at the end of the conversation. You can see the person has actually felt relaxed. And I think it's the trust in you, that you're a professional, that they feel safe, that you're not trying to sort of set them up, you're not trying to box them. So that's when the defenses definitely get let down. And then it's often those little gems at the end of the story that suddenly come out and you kind of go, oh, that was the golden nugget. So I'd love you to share. Obviously, you've been interviewing so many people over your career, but do you have any specifically memorable guests, if you like, or topics that you've covered that have really stood out for you?
One person who really stood out for me, although I didn't have the opportunity to interview her, I did meet her. I actually did backstage interviews for the Rocky Horror Picture Show back in, I think it was 99 or 98. And the main star of that show was Toddy Goldsmith, who is Olivia Newton-John's niece. So I went backstage with my cameraman. We went into the area where we go, the doors open, and there's Olivia Newton-John. And I nearly died. I just went, it's really Olivia. And she smiled, her beautiful, friendly smile, and said, hello. And I shook hands with her. I introduced myself. And I told her, I'm here to do the interviews with the cast. And she said, you're very young to be a journalist. I said, I'm studying and this is what I do. And I volunteer and I do this as part of my passion for television at the time. And she had that big smile, iconic smile on her face. And she said, go for your dreams and never let go of that feeling of wanting it. I thought, that's so inspirational. Thank you, Olivia. And that was just a fabulous moment for me. I obviously then carried on and did the interviews, and Olivia left for that evening. But although I didn't get the chance to interview her, it was her as a person and her in her being herself and telling this little 18-year-old girl at the time, or woman just starting out, go for your dreams and never let go of that feeling of wanting it. And that was a real inspirational moment for me in my entire 25 years. That's a standout moment for me.
Oh, how amazing. And bless Olivia Newton-John. Oh my goodness. What a beautiful soul, but how impressionable, how amazing that the words you say to others are just so impactful. I absolutely love that. From the woman rising sort of perspective of the work that I do, I just so honor Olivia and for that moment, because look at the impact it actually had. And then you went on to interview a whole lot of people. Sort of let's name who have you interviewed and how have they sort of been probably unique or standouts for you?
Who else have I interviewed? Guy Sebastian and his lovely wife, Jules. Jules is a real sweetheart. And at the time I was actually deputy editor of a couple of national magazines, and we were discussing lots of things, not just about his music, but about, at the time it was more about his home and the things that he did in his home that changed and why he wanted that change, about his family and his boys. And he's just a real down-to-earth Aussie bloke, that's got his wife and his kids, and he's just such a great family guy. And you don't really see that behind the exterior of the media hype and the toughness, and even in his talent. He's got such great talent, Guy, with his music. So Guy is a wonderful person that I did interview. Another person was Elle Macpherson. There's an old name. It's taking you back definitely the 25 years in my career. But Elle Macpherson, she's known for her lingerie and for being a supermodel, but she also launched this swimwear range. I think it was also back in 98 or 99. And when she launched that swimwear range, it was all about embracing femininity and for all shapes and all sizes. And coming from a supermodel, that was really important to then expand out to women of all shapes and sizes, and having two pieces and one pieces and little cutouts. It was very new at the time as well. Yes, we had our bikinis and it's nothing new there, but in terms of the different styles she portrayed and the colours and the designs that complemented each woman and each figure, that was something new. And that was really important at the time for Elle to showcase that she wasn't just a pretty face with lingerie. It was all about other women of the world as well. Other notable people, I suppose, you've got your politicians. Ita Buttrose. Ita was fabulous. Ita is a woman of substance, a woman of value, and a woman that if you have not had the pleasure to meet, at least watch some of her shows or interviews on television, watch something that she's done on television. Yes, she's the Australian of the Year, I think, for a couple of years ago, and well deserved, obviously, but Ita is just the heart and soul of Australian television. And she's an incredible woman that I had the absolute pleasure of meeting as well. Yeah, a couple of names.
Your social, it's almost like every day or two you're at some amazing event, meeting politicians, you'll be meeting top doctors, you'll be meeting celebrities, and that's right, they become too numerous and it is just your day-to-day life. But I think the viewers are just fascinated by, yeah, that's right, you get to pop into their lives and suddenly in such a deep, sudden way. I think that's the most amazing thing. And I know that other people, and I've seen it written in the press, or even sort of referring to you as the next Aussie Oprah. Oh my goodness, how does it actually feel when you suddenly, read things like that or hear people say that? How does it feel to be compared in that way?
I am not even a fraction of what Oprah is. Oprah is, she is a woman that will never be repeated in history. She graced the screens with educational and informative stories, and that's also my style. I do discuss all kinds of topics, sex and relationships and health, sport, religion, philosophy, entertainment, crime, so all sorts of topics. And I think that's kind of the correlation that I have between how I present and how Oprah presents. And she also likes to have the raw and authentic style. People feel comfortable sharing with Oprah. She provides that safe space. She has substance, and it's not trash TV. We have enough trash TV. And I think that's the only kind of correlation that I have between myself and Oprah. I've also interviewed influencers and movie celebrities and global best-selling authors and global business icons. And the reason I do that is that their success is teachable and entertaining, and it is something of value that my audience would like to listen to. And although when you compare that to other things on television, yes, we have lots of talk shows, and although Oprah may not have been unique in a new talk show, it was a talk show. However, she completely changed the genre through her persona and the way she presented her emphasis on optimism and self-improvement, and her influence spread all over the world. And I aspire to be like that, but I can tell you now there will never be another Oprah.
Look, I totally agree. She is the queen, but it is incredibly flattering and honouring to be starting to be referred to in that way. So I think just accept that. I totally agree with how that comparison has come about, though, because it's that ability to not just interview someone and find out, yes, they're amazing, yes, they're achieving, yes, they're a celebrity, yes, they're, have this incredible talent or gift, but also in the interview, the interviewee, the recipient, the audience, people like myself are watching it, and we actually get gold nuggets. We get this learning or teaching or go, that's a good idea. I could implement that myself. And so not in every interview, but there's that sort of way that it's, like it's fully exploring the journey or the issue at hand while giving the audience something really deep or valuable. I think it's the gifts you're giving to the audience that make the difference. Well, they do from what I watch. So hopefully that's what you're going for, Suzy Michael. That is you're nailing that, because I think that's the difference of a really an amazing sort of journalist, having those journalistic skills that really take you to that next level. So let's then move on to the fact that you specialize in a range of sort of, genres or stories, if you like. You do lifestyle, you do entertainment, you do investigative journalism stories. How do you actually manage to balance the different types of content that you then have to produce to have that sort of range? And what criteria, if you like, do you use to determine, which ones do you pursue? Because everything's interesting.
Yes, everything's interesting. Exactly. So I look at what is of interest, and then I narrow it down to quality, and will it make a powerful impact on my audience? And will it add value in their life? You spoke about value earlier. So investigative stories, for example, you can investigate anything, not just crime, but you can investigate education and health breakthroughs. You can investigate relationships. You can investigate family issues, the balance of family. So there's a lot of investigative stories that resonate with society. And it's looking at that quality and will it make a powerful impact on my audience? And when you look at lifestyle, for example, people think of lifestyle as home improvement. Well, it's not just home improvement. Lifestyle encapsulates a whole broad range of things. It could be cooking, it could be fashion, it could be some sort of entertainment. It's a lot encapsulated in that lifestyle. Lifestyle is the way you live your life. And so looking again at the relevance of how do people live their life? What do they feel is important? What do they want to see on television that would be of benefit to them in their own lives? And unpacking some of those topics and stories and bringing it to them, that's going to add value and add that extra, oh, that was really helpful moment in their life. So that's how I kind of determine it.
Now we have a viewer question, and so over to you.
Can you tell us what's coming up in the year ahead for TV? Thank you. Bye.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for that question. Yes. What's coming up? I think you can expect to see more cross-cultural stories with an Australian twist. So, for example, it could be American film production and Australian film production, or discussing the two different identities between the cross-cultural world of sports, say the American gridiron and our own footy stars, or it could be British chefs, so the famous Jamie Oliver, and then our own iconic chefs. We, Australia, are renowned for our famous chefs and celebrity chefs. We love our food and we love our culture because we're a big melting pot. We have that advantage. So you can expect to see a couple of seasons coming out on a lot of cross-cultural content, not just exploring the global content in terms of a lifestyle and investigative stories, but then relating that back to our own Australian soil and how that relates again to Australian viewers. And it is taking Australia and showcasing it to the world as well, looking at our own people who have made impact in society and our own Ita Buttresses of the world and bringing those kind of people to the world and showcasing them as well. So a lot of cross-cultural shows are going to be coming up.
Ah, hot off the press from Suzy Michael. How's that? Thank you so much to our viewer question, and I love it. I love knowing, where are we actually heading in mainstream media, and also a lot more in digital media, which makes me bring over to the next sort of question towards you is, well, what's happening with Suzy Michael? Your brand just continues to rise. I know you've got more and more things happening. So where can our viewers expect to see you more? What exciting projects are you happy to share with us?
Oh, lots happening. So Suzy TV, as you can see, it's the set behind me. Suzy TV is done. We have brand new content coming out under a new name. You'll have to wait and see what that is. And there's lots more happening in terms of traveling and bringing even flavors of the world back to the screens, looking at my own Egyptian heritage as well, looking at bringing some of that to the screens. I know there's a lot of ethnic and Middle Eastern content, but Egyptians don't really get that look in. And so bringing that look in of different cultures that might not have that opportunity, not just Egyptian cultures, but even Ethiopian and even really rare things that you don't get to hear about often, bringing that to the screens, because I think the world is filled with incredible flavors and culture and stories that don't get shown as much. You need to kind of research on Google to find out a little bit more about this culture or a little bit more about that person. And there are so many people on the screens that have incredible stories behind them that you don't know, where their history could be something unique. And you think, oh, I didn't know that person was from Zimbabwe. They didn't look, I thought they were, from some part of America or something. So it's really showcasing the beauty that we have of people in the world and bringing that to the audience.
Oh, I love the way you've referred to that as flavors of the world. And I know you're a massive cooking fan and you could seriously have your own cooking show. So not just a fan, but just actually has the skills to back it up. And I'm really excited that you're progressing, pushing media into that realm, because let's face it, like we're both in Australia. I know we're broadcasting globally, but we have such a high percentage of multicultural Australians. Like Australia is multicultural, and so being able to see all aspects of culture, food, ethnicity sort of reflected in our media is really important. It's really important when the young Susys, age 10, are watching the TV and actually seeing people that they relate to represented, right? And being able to get those gold nuggets given to them that actually encourage them to aspire to their own greatness in the future. And I think that's super empowering. And I honor women who actually are progressing, working in that way, because it means that we don't just turn on the TV and just get the same old repeated reality TV, which can be all right in small doses. But I think more and more people are actually wanting exactly what you offer, that raw and authentic approach, the multicultural approach, the fact that everyone has a backstory, even the celebrities, it's those interesting, it's their whys, it's their callings, it's their motivation for doing what they do, it's their, unpacking their disappointments when things go wrong, to actually see the side of them that really fascinates the general viewer. And it's a good thing, because it makes us really see people in a different light, and it makes us see them more holistically. And I think that is super important. Let's hope that you agree with me on that perspective, Suzy.
I totally agree with you. Yes. Yes, you said it, Annie. Totally agree with you. And it's great. It's refreshing to know that the content and the way that I'm thinking ahead and producing and trying to source that quality for the audience is reciprocated. And you've just spoken, I suppose, as one of my viewers, as to what you're anticipating and what your thoughts are, and it's in alignment with what's coming up. So it's refreshing to know that we're on the right track and there is a lot of great content coming. And I'm really hoping it's not just going to revolutionize people's lives and enrich their lives, but really bring the globe closer together. I feel there's a bit of mismatch between different parts of the globe, and it's just unifying that a little bit more, a little bit tighter, particularly Australia, where we're this island on the other side of the world, and just bringing that unity back into Australia, as I said, is a melting pot, that connection between all the people of Australia and their homelands.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing on my program today. I know the viewers, keep those questions coming in. We will be available to answer any of those questions. Suzy is very contactable. You can find her via suzymichael.com.au. If you're wanting her to speak at your event, if you're wanting her to interview someone specifically for your media arm, just reach out to her, definitely in her own area of media, television shows and the like. She's definitely a woman who will bring out the true essence in your story in a very raw, authentic way. So I encourage everyone watching just to check out Suzy's website, suzymichael.com.au. And I thank you so much for being on the show, Suzy, and thank you for being such a breath of fresh air in Australian media. And I look forward to watching you become more and more visible in the global media as well.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you for the opportunity and give me the platform to speak and share what's coming up as well. Thank you so much.